Being expensive doesn't always mean useful, and sadly, this is the fate of some insanely expensive mega projects that ended up being an absolute waste of money, time, and resources. Did you know there is a capital city that was built for $17 billion but remains practically empty? What a waste! The US wasted $17 billion on a mega project that was never even used and remains completely useless to this day. And that's not even all. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the most useless mega projects in the world. Let's get into it. First on the list is Interstate A3 in Hawaii at $1.3 billion. This 26-kilometer-long interstate highway in Aloha State, Hawaii, is a breathtakingly beautiful highway that travels through one of the most beautiful environments in the world. It is so breathtaking that it causes serious concerns, as drivers will stop to get a good glance at this beauty and end up causing terrible traffic. However, it is just as controversial as it is beautiful. It cost a whopping $1.3 billion to construct this highway, and perhaps the money wouldn't have been a waste if the highway turned out to be useful. But it didn't. It has the highest highway cost per kilometer at $50 per kilometer. Also, because of the outdated defense concerns from the 1960s and the lack of a straight route from the highway to downtown Honolulu, critics claim that it is a road leading nowhere. On top of that, there is the matter of native Hawaiians, the majority of whom continue to oppose the A3 because they think it is cursed since several important religious and cultural sites were destroyed during construction. Interstate A3 took more than 40 years to complete, and according to the Hawaiian magazine, it caused a great deal of debate among native Hawaiians. The roadway was first proposed in 1960 with defense considerations in mind, since it would link the Marine Corps Air Station on the East Coast with the naval facility at Pearl Harbor, which is located on the south side. The plans were then postponed indefinitely due to environmental regulations in effect at the time and a change in route to protect the nearby valleys. Then 26 years later, the project was exempted from environmental rules by Congress, making it possible for development to start in 1989. In 1997, some 37 years after it was first proposed, the highway was finally completed. Because of the challenging terrain it was built on and the cutting-edge technologies that were employed in its construction, Interstate 3 is sometimes regarded as an engineering marvel. To safeguard the local ecosystem in the valleys below, the highway goes almost entirely over ducks, in addition to several high-tech tunnels. It cost 5 times more than the expected budget as a result of route deterioration and newer but more expensive technologies. In terms of big projects, the Interstate A3 highway is unquestionably a success. However, for people, it remains useless and an absolute waste of money. Number 2. Ciudad Real Central Airport, Spain, $1.1 billion. One of the most frequently visited countries in Europe is Spain, and that was a key consideration when the idea for the city's central airport emerged. It was predicted that it would become the preferred vacation spot for both domestic and foreign tourists. But is it? It sure isn't. The goal of this new airport was to provide a viable alternative to Madrid's already incredibly packed main airport. The new airport was able to accommodate 2 million people annually and has one of the top 5 longest runways in all of Europe. But in comparison to Madrid's 70 million passenger capacity, this is a small figure. So they put plans in place to increase the capacity to 10 million per year. They could have avoided the trouble and expense if they could have only found someone to advise them that it was a complete waste. In 2009, when it eventually started operating, the $1 billion cost could have appeared reasonable, but it was put on hold in 2012 when the project sponsor filed for bankruptcy. The first problem this project faced was its location. Despite being called the Central Airport, it wasn't in any way central because it was 200 kilometers outside of Madrid. This made matters worse because most travelers dreaded making the long trip to the distant site, and the majority of major airlines chose to operate their flights from the nation's capital. As a result, there was only one small airline operating out of the newly constructed airport after its first year of operation. By 2012, the airport had accumulated a $372 million debt without any big airlines to draw travelers. It wasn't so long after it entered bankruptcy and was offered for sale in 2013. The airport started to deteriorate soon after it shut down, and after that, it was put on the market for $95 million. Unfortunately, no investor wanted to pay the necessary amount. Many proposals were turned down by the Spanish Commercial Court, including one for 10,000 euros, made by a group of British and Asian investors who wanted to use it as a gateway for Chinese companies. In the end, Ciudad Real International Airport SL purchased the airport for $60.5 million. In September 2019, the airstrip and its lone 4,100-meter-long runway were reopened. However, there are no scheduled passenger services either from or to the airport. Instead, it has become a maintenance and storage facility, and all the billions are in a ditch. Number 3. Raegyong Hotel, $2 billion. The Raegyong Hotel, also known as the Hostel of Doom, is a North Korea unfinished hotel built to attract foreign tourists. The 330-meter-tall, 105-story hotel, which began construction in Pyongyang in 1987 with funding from the Soviet Union. It is an oddity, however, because despite having over 3,000 hotel rooms and 5 rotating restaurants, it has never been used for its intended purpose of accommodating foreign visitors. The structure, which was once intended to be a thriving resort with the ambition of hosting fabulous grand casinos, has been vacant and, for the most part, incomplete for decades. North Korea experienced severe financial hardship following the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the hotel's construction was halted in 1992 as a result. In 2018, an additional $180 million in ornamental LED illumination was added to the hotel's exterior walls, transforming the entire structure into a heightened display of nationalistic imagery. According to Reuters, the total cost of the renovation on the untreated hotel is expected to be approximately $2 billion. This amounts to about 5% of North Korea's GDP. Number 4. Naypyidaw of Myanmar, $4 to $5 billion. Naypyidaw in Myanmar is one of the world's most pointless megaprojects. The city was created to serve as Myanmar's new capital, and it cost between $4 and $5 billion to build, yet only a small number of people actually reside there. There are no people on the streets or in the malls, and even if many people go to the airport, there are only around a dozen of them. Naypyidaw appears to have everything to draw tourists. A 20-lane motorway, more than 100 5-star hotels organized into 3 distinct hotel districts, golf courses, museums, and even a 99-meter-tall replica of a Yangon icon. Wow! But hang on, one crucial element is still missing: residents. Less than 1 million people call this new capital home, as most people still prefer to live in the suburbs that existed before the city was made the capital. But why does nobody want to live there? Most of the population is hesitant to settle permanently in the city due to a persistent shortage of health facilities, high-quality educational institutions, and employment possibilities. Can you believe a city worth billions of dollars would be lacking in basic necessities? Well, Naypyidaw does. They obviously spent money on unneeded things. This is definitely the strangest capital city in the world, and is still largely useless to the majority of the populace. Number 5. Forest City, Malaysia, $100 billion. The controversial Forest City project in Malaysia has been labeled the second most useless megaproject in the world. You can call this city a ghost city, because apparently you won't see anyone there. The $100 billion luxury estate in Malaysia is intended to be a living paradise. Instead, 6 years after it began construction, it has become a ghost town with vacant streets and empty skyscrapers. But how did he move from a living paradise to a ghost town? The influx of Chinese investors, which people perceived as a new type of colonization, caused an uproar. As a result, after Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad instituted a shift in government, foreigners were not permitted to own property in the Forest City. So large numbers of foreigners started leaving the city, discouraging potential investment. The next major obstacle was the pandemic and the international travel restrictions. There could be no new investors because of Malaysia's movement control order. Forest City is enormous. It covers 1,740 hectares, which is 4 times the area of the city-state of Monaco. At first, it was expected that the estate would house about 700,000. The city, which will cost $100 billion when finished in 2035, will run entirely on renewable energy. An island with 50 apartment structures, golf courses, swimming pools, and beaches is one of the 4 that have been proposed. However, this extremely ambitious project is not without its challenges. According to a 2019 report by Foreign Policy, only 500 or so people were living in the estate as of that year. The population of the estate has subsequently increased to several thousand, but that is still less than 5% of what was anticipated. Which of these useless megaprojects do you think will eventually turn out useful in the future? Let's know in the comments section.